Look, I get it. Your history professor told you that ancient civilizations were isolated pockets of humanity, struggling in the dark, separated by vast, impassable oceans. They call it independent invention, the convenient academic excuse for when two cultures who never met happen to build the exact same impossible thing. But what if I told you that the independent part is a fairy tale? What if I told you there is a physical, architectural source code written into the stone of every continent? Today, we're looking at the smoking guns. We're going to look at 12 ancient ruins that share the exact same blueprint. And we're starting with a detail so specific, it makes the coincidence theory look like a joke. Stick around for number 1, because it reveals a global GPS coordinate system that shouldn't have existed for another 5,000 years. Let's get to it. Number 12, the metal clamps, the T-grooves. Imagine you're a detective investigating 3 different crime scenes across the globe. In a remote mountain temple in Peru, you find a very specific notched T-shaped groove cut into a massive stone block. You fly to Egypt, walk into the heart of the Karnak temple, and find the exact same T shape. Then you trek to Cambodia, and there it is again at Angkor Wat. These aren't just holes, they are precision-engineered sockets designed to hold molten metal clamps. Now, look at the split screen. On the left, you see the T-grooves of Ollantaytambo in Peru. On the right, the ones from Egypt. They are identical. Mainstream archaeology tells us these cultures were separated by thousands of miles and thousands of years, yet they all decided that a standard mortar wasn't enough. They used butterfly or T-clamps made of copper or silver alloys to tie their megaliths together. To do this, you need to know how to smell metal, how to create a portable forge, and how to precision-cut granite, the second hardest stone on Earth. The odds of 3 isolated cultures developing this hyper-specific engineering solution simultaneously are effectively 0. The academic twist is that this is just the most logical way to join stone. It's convergent evolution, they say. But if it's so logical, why did we stop doing it for 2 millennia? The sheer technical overlap suggests we aren't looking at 3 different ideas, but one single forgotten manual for building a civilization. Of course, once you start looking at the stones themselves, you notice they have more than just holes. They have weird, belly button-like growths. Number 11, the nubs, sacred bumps. Picture a master sculptor finishing a 20-ton granite block. He spent weeks polishing the surface to a mirror sheen, making sure every angle is perfect. And then, for some inexplicable reason, he leaves a small, ugly, rectangular bump sticking out of the bottom. It looks like a handle or a wart. Now imagine this same mistake appearing on the Great Pyramid of Giza, the walls of Cusco, and the ancient temples of India. Why would the most meticulous builders in history leave these random protrusions on their finest work? Take a look at the screen. You're seeing a side-by-side of a wall in Peru and a casing stone in Egypt. Those little bumps or nubs serve no known structural purpose. They aren't for lifting. Engineers have proven they'd snap right off under the weight of these multi-ton blocks. They aren't decorative. They look like leftovers. Yet they appear globally, always in the same positions on the most difficult stones to carve. In India, they are found on the unfinished parts of sacred sites, just like in the Mediterranean. It's as if the builders left a signature, a deliberate breadcrumb trail to show us they were all part of the same guild. Skeptics argue these are just lifting points that were never sanded down because the projects were abandoned. But that doesn't explain why they appear on finished sacred walls. It feels less like an accident and more like a standardized mark of the manufacturing process. It's the Intel Inside sticker of the ancient world. But these nubs are just the surface. Wait until you see the impossible shapes these stones were forced to take.
Think of the last time you tried to fit luggage into a car trunk. Now imagine those suitcases weigh 50 tons each and are shaped like irregular 12-sided polygons. You don't use mortar, you just slide them together so perfectly that a human hair can't fit between them. This isn't a Lego set, it's a jigsaw puzzle from hell. And strangely, this impossible style of masonry is the standard at both the Temple of Apollo in Delphi, Greece, and the fortress of Sacsayhuaman in Peru. The visual evidence is staggering. Look at these 2 walls. One is in the heart of the Andes, the other is in the cradle of Greek civilization. They use polygonal masonry, stones with multiple irregular angles that lock together in a 3-dimensional weave. Why go through the nightmare of carving 12 angles when a simple rectangle would do? Because both sites sit on major fault lines. This specific puzzle style allows the stones to dance during an earthquake and then settle back into their original positions. It is the most advanced earthquake proofing ever devised, used by two cultures that supposedly never spoke to one another. Modern architects admit that replicating this today would be a financial and logistical suicide mission. We are told it's coincidence that two different cultures chose the hardest possible way to build. But when the coincidence involves advanced seismic engineering and identical aesthetic choices, the explanation starts to feel like a cover-up. And the complexity doesn't stop at the flat walls, it literally bends around the corners. Number 9. The corner wrap technique. Imagine you're building a brick house. When you get to a corner, you place one brick, then overlap it with another from the adjacent side. Simple, right? But the ancients didn't do simple. In both the Incan Empire and ancient Egypt, the builders would take a massive block and carve a 90-degree L-shaped into the stone itself so that it wrapped around the corner. They didn't want a seam at the point of most stress. They wanted the stone to be the corner. This is a stone-cutting nightmare. To create a wraparound cornerstone, you have to remove a massive amount of material from a solid block, wasting precious granite and increasing the risk of the stone cracking during the process. Yet we see this exact L-cut at the Valley Temple in Giza and the Coricancha in Peru. Look at the split screen. The precision is identical. This isn't just a good idea, it's a specific, highly difficult architectural flex that serves a very specific structural purpose, creating a unified, vibration-resistant joint. The mainstream view is that they just had a lot of time on their hands. But time doesn't grant you universal engineering blueprints. You don't just accidentally decide to waste 30% of your stone to create a wraparound joint unless you were taught that this is the only way to build for eternity. If they were sharing corner techniques, they were certainly sharing the design of their entrances as well.
Number 8. The trapezoidal doorways. Walk up to any modern door. It's a rectangle. Now, travel to the ancient ruins of the Druids in Europe, the Pharaohs in Africa, and the Incas in South America. You'll notice something strange. The doors are all slanty. They are wider at the base and narrower at the top, forming a trapezoid. From the megalithic tombs of Ireland to the Sun Temple in Peru, the trapezoid is the universal shape of the sacred entrance. Why the trapezoid? From an engineering perspective, it's brilliant. A trapezoidal frame is much better at supporting the weight of a massive stone lintel than a standard rectangle. It distributes the load outward. But there's more to it than physics. These doorways often lead to the inner sanctums of temples and are carved with the same precision we see in the masonry. Why did the primitive Druids and the isolated Incas both settle on this specific geometric shape to guard their gods? The skeptical take is that the trapezoid is a natural progression of stone architecture. But if it's so natural, why is it absent from so many other cultures in between? It's a stylistic choice that doubles as a high-level engineering hack. It's as if a single master builder traveled the world handing out blueprints that said, if you want it to last 10,000 years, make the doors tilt. And speaking of things the gods left behind, wait until you see what they're carrying. Number 7. The handbag of the gods. Here is where things get truly weird. Look at the stone carvings of the Anunnaki in ancient Sumeria. They are holding a mysterious square object with a handle. It looks exactly like a modern handbag. Now, look at the Man of Tula statues in Mexico, carved by the Olmecs. They are holding the same bag. Now, look at the pillars of Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, which are over 11,000 years old. There, carved into the oldest temple on Earth, are 3 of these identical handbags. Mainstream archaeologists will tell you these are just baskets for carrying seeds or offerings. It's a common human experience to carry a bag, right? But look closer. These aren't woven baskets. They are depicted as solid, often featuring strange dials or symbols on the front. Alternative researchers argue these represent buckets of life or even ancient technology, some kind of power source or knowledge kit brought by the civilizers of humanity. So which side are you on? Is it just a coincidence that 3 civilizations across 10,000 years all decided to depict their gods carrying the same man bag, or is this proof of a shared tech support team for humanity? Tell me in the comments if you think it's a basket or a battery, because the basket theory is starting to feel a bit light. Whatever was in those bags, it might have been used to unlock the very doors that don't actually open. Number 6. The false doors, spirit portals. Imagine finding a door carved into a solid rock face. It has a frame, a lintel, even a recessed keyhole, but it doesn't open. It's a solid wall. In Peru, it's called the Gate of the Gods at Hayumaka. In Egypt, every major tomb and temple has a false door. They look identical, recessed, multi-layered stone carvings that suggest a portal. Both cultures claimed these weren't just decorations, they were actual portals for the soul to travel between worlds. Look at the comparison on your screen.
The Gate of the Gods in the Andes looks like a giant version of the false doors found in the Old Kingdom tombs of Saqqara. Both feature a central niche where the spirit was said to enter. If these cultures were unrelated, why did they both spend thousands of man-hours carving fake doors into the hardest rock on the planet? Why use the same recessed, telescoping design to represent a spiritual gateway? Skeptics say it's just funerary art, but art usually varies by culture. This is a standardized architectural feature. It's as if there was a universal user manual for how to build a portal for the afterlife. And these portals weren't left unguarded. They were usually watched over by the same stone beasts. Number 5. The Sphinx and the Jaguar. Egypt has the Great Sphinx, a feline guardian with a human head, sitting at the entrance to the Giza plateau, guarding the secrets of the first time. Halfway across the world, the Maya and the Aztecs were obsessed with the jaguar. They built massive statues and temples dedicated to the jaguar men who guarded the entrance to the underworld. Both cultures saw the great cat not just a predator, but as the ultimate sentinel of sacred knowledge. The parallels are more than skin deep. In Egypt, the lion represented the horizon and the transition between life and death. In Mesoamerica, the jaguar represented the exact same thing, the sun's journey through the darkness of the night. Both civilizations placed these feline statues at the cardinal points of their temples. They were the checkpoints of the soul. Why a cat? Why not a bear, or a wolf, or a hawk? The twist is that lions and jaguars are simply the top predators in their respective regions, so they naturally become symbols of power. But that doesn't explain the identical ritualistic placement, or the belief that these cats were gatekeepers of hidden dimensions. It feels like a global religion with the same mascot rebranded for different continents. And the stones these cats guard? They share a texture that defies explanation.
Number 4. The puffed stone aesthetic. Look at the base of the pyramid of Menkaure in Giza. The stones aren't flat, they are puffed out, looking almost like soft stone pillows. Now, look at the walls of the Coricancha in Peru. Same thing. The stones look like they were made of dough that expanded, or like they were pillowed by some immense heat or pressure. This isn't just rough stone, it's a deliberate, highly stylized aesthetic that appears in the most sophisticated ancient masonry. Here is where the tribal trigger kicks in. Engineers and geopolymer theorists argue that this puffed look is proof the stones weren't carved at all, they were poured. They suggest the ancients had a way to chemically soften stone into a slurry that was then poured into molds, creating that natural bulge. Mainstream historians, however, insist this is bossage, a technique where you pound the stone with harder rocks for decades just to make it look like that for style. So, what do you think? Did they spend 40 years hitting a rock with another rock to make it look like a pillow, or did they have a molding technology we've lost? Is it melted stone or mashed finger syndrome? Let me know in the comments, because independent invention doesn't explain why everyone suddenly wanted their temples to look like they were made of giant marshmallows. But if the walls were pillows, the symbols they carved into them were the real wake-up call. Number 3. The pine cone symbolism. Go to the Vatican today, and you'll see the Cortile della Pina, the court of the pine cone. It's a massive bronze pine cone. Now, look at the statues of ancient Babylon. The gods are holding a pine cone. Look at the ruins of Angkor Wat in Cambodia. The very towers are shaped like pine cones. The symbol is everywhere, from the staff of Osiris in Egypt to the hair of the Buddha. Why a pine cone? Biologically, the pine cone is a perfect Fibonacci spiral, but esoterically, it represents the pineal gland, the third eye, located in the geometric center of the human brain. Ancient cultures, supposedly ignorant of advanced anatomy, all used the pine cone to represent spiritual enlightenment and the seat of the soul. How did they all know that this specific shape in nature corresponded to a tiny pine cone-shaped gland deep inside the human skull? The twist is that the pine cone is just a common shape in nature, so it's inevitable that people would use it in art. But that doesn't explain why it's always associated with the third eye, or higher consciousness across cultures that supposedly had no contact. It's a biological secret hidden in plain sight, a global logo for the initiated. And if the pine cone is the map of the inner world, the pyramids were the map of the outer one.
Look up at the night sky. The 3 stars of Orion's belt are some of the most recognizable objects in the cosmos. Now look at the ground. In Egypt, the 3 Great Pyramids of Giza are laid out in a perfect offset pattern that mirrors those 3 stars. Now fly to Mexico. The 3 massive pyramids of Teotihuacan, the Sun, the Moon, and the Temple of Quetzalcoatl, are laid out in the exact same offset pattern. This isn't just a pretty close match. The scale, the angles, and the astronomical orientation are precise. Both cultures, separated by the Atlantic Ocean, decided to build their City of the Gods as a terrestrial mirror of the constellation Orion. Why Orion? Both cultures claimed their gods came from those stars. They weren't just building tombs, they were building landing pads or star maps in stone, anchored to the heavens. Skeptics argue that with enough stars and enough buildings, you can find a match anywhere. But these aren't just any buildings. They are the largest structures on their respective continents. To say it's a coincidence is like saying 2 people in different countries both decided to build a scale model of the same specific Lego set by accident. But even this alignment is small scale compared to the global code we're about to reveal. Number 1, the Great Circle alignment. We've seen the T-grooves, the nubs, and the star maps. But now we have to look at the master blueprint itself. If you take a globe and draw a single straight great circle line around the Earth at a 30-degree angle to the equator, something impossible happens. This line passes directly through, within a fraction of a degree, the Great Pyramid of Giza, the rose-red city of Petra, the ancient ruins of Mohenjo-Daro, the temples of Angkor Wat, the navel of the world at Easter Island, and the Nazca Lines. This isn't independent invention. This is a global GPS coordinate system. These sites aren't just similar. They are physically connected by a single geometric plan that encompasses the entire planet. The Great Circle connects the most significant megalithic sites on Earth in a perfect mathematical loop. To achieve this, the builders had to know the exact size and shape of the Earth, thousands of years before we supposedly discovered it was round. Mainstream science has no answer for this. They call it apophenia, seeing patterns where none exist. But the math doesn't lie. The probability of these specific, massive ruins falling on a single line by chance is billions to 1. It proves that the ancient world wasn't a collection of isolated tribes, but a single global civilization, or at the very least, a civilization guided by a single global architect. We aren't looking at coincidences. We are looking at the ruins of a world that was more connected than we are today.
And if you need one more piece of the puzzle, consider the oral traditions. Every single one of these cultures, the Egyptians, the Maya, the Incas, the Sumerians, they all said the same thing. They didn't claim to have invented this technology. They all said they were given the knowledge by sky gods or star people who arrived after a great flood to rebuild the world. We call it mythology because it's easier than admitting they might be telling the truth. We are the ones with amnesia, looking at the source code of our own history and calling it a jigsaw puzzle. The evidence is literally set in stone. We are told these cultures were isolated, yet they shared the same clamps, the same nubs, the same star maps, and the same global GPS line. If you're tired of the coincidence excuse, join the tribe. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications because we're digging deeper into the oddly explained history they don't want you to question. What's the most impossible ruin you've ever seen? Drop it in the comments. Let's see if we can find its twin on the other side of the world. Stay curious, stay skeptical, and remember, the truth isn't just out there, it's right under our feet.